Princess Yi Wu, who had lost her country, was reborn at the age of 15 and vowed to reverse this unjust fate. She won't let go of any enemies who hurt her. However, why is the person who hurt him the most in his past life protecting her the most now? But what went wrong? Bailianian smiled faintly. Your Highness Royal Highness Princess, who of us is not born again? The great demon king is also reincarnated. Run. It's late, with my king's cub. Where else do you want to escape from heaven and earth? Keywords of the novel. After being reborn, I blacked out with the villain without a pop-up window. After being reborn, I blacked out with the villain. Download the complete TXT collection. After being reborn, I blacked out the latest chapters with the villain to read. Chapter 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. The city of Sifang is broken. The gloomy sky pressed against the palace wall, with bloodstains piercing through the long blue stone steps, indicating that this place had just experienced a brutal battle. Yi Wu knelt on the ground and looked up at the person in front of her. Although she was only in her 20s, her face was withered, with only those eyes filled with deep-seated hatred and exhaustion. She lifted a smile and said, Bailianian, don't you just want to see me begging for mercy? Then you have already succeeded. Bailianian gently embraced her and said in a hoarse voice, Ah Wu, if we escape, can we start over again? Yi Wu sarcastically said, have you forgotten your identity? You are the leader of the rebel army, and I am the princess of the great holy court. We are sworn brothers. Bailianian's gaze stiffened, and what he hated the most was her refusal from 1,000 miles away. 3 months of imprisonment and humiliation failed to shatter her pride. He grabbed the person in front of him and exclaimed excitedly, even if we don't share the same fate, I still want you to bury me. Okay. Yi Wu smiled bitterly, and death was the best liberation for her. Anyway, when the army returns to the capital, the princess who has been mistreated by the rebel leader will also have a dead end. She will never forget the day when Bailianian was killed in the palace. Her father, along with his stepmother, concubine, and a group of princes and princesses, hurriedly fled, but cruelly pushed her to the rebels. Yi Wu finally grabbed onto Huang Jiazhaoren's clothes and begged them not to leave her. Zhao Ren, however, disgusted and said, Yi Wu, perhaps your beauty can help us stop the rebels. Anyway, you are already in ruins. Why do you think Shui Han doesn't love you? Because I sent someone to tarnish you on our wedding night. Yi Wu widened her eyes in disbelief. In the next moment, she had already been pushed out and could only despair as she watched their hasty escape. And she was like a lowly slave, imprisoned by Bailianian in this palace where freedom was not allowed, indulging in pleasure and bullying. Ah Wu, it's not that I forgot my identity, it's that you forgot my identity. Even now, can't you remember who I am? The sound of Bailianian sounded like a spell. Aren't you the lowly slave you used to be? You hate me for hurting and destroying you. You still don't remember who I am. If you remember who I am, I'll let you go. Who are you? Who are you? Princess, princess. Why are you still having nightmares during the day? An anxious voice completely awakened Yi Wu, and she suddenly opened her eyes and sat up. Yuan Yang. Yi Wu recognized the person in front of her, who was her maid from many years ago. However, isn't Yuan Yang already dead? Did she also go to the underworld? She remembered that when the army returned to the palace, Bailianian lit up half of the city's fire, and the 4 armies and the entire imperial city were buried with him. I was in his arms and turned into ashes. Yi Wu fiercely pinched her palm, and the pain came. Everything was like a nightmare, as if she had woken up and returned. Princess, don't scare me. Although Prince Shui didn't do it properly today, you still have to consider yourself. Yuan Yang looked worried. Everything is real. Yi Wu reacted and suddenly got up and ran to the bronze mirror. Her 15-year-old face was engraved with a charming charm. She looked at Yuan Yang in a daze and said, "What year is it now?" "In the 11th year of the Tianqi era, August." Yi Wu smiled at the words, looking back and forth. She really came back. God gave her a chance to start over, and she remembers today, which was the day when she accidentally ran into her fiancé A Shuehan in the forest, confided in his cousin, and loved each other. She was reluctant to divorce Shuehan, a scumbag, and then turned around to vent her emotions on the hunting ground. An arrow accidentally injured a servant's leg, almost killing him. And that Manu was a notorious rebel leader in later generations, Bailianian, and they also formed a deadly feud because of it. No way. Yi Wu asked Yuan Yang, "What about the slave who was shot today? It seems to have been carried away." "Let's go, I'll go see him." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Leaving the room, the sunshine brought a little warmth. Yi Wu suppressed the ecstasy in her heart and walked quickly to the vicinity of the stable. The shadow of being imprisoned in her past life made her feel scared when she remembered it. But she was reborn, and before he was seriously injured, everything was still possible. The guard who kept the stables saw Yi Wu and immediately bowed down and said, "Your Highness Royal Highness Princess. Where are people?" "Princess Hui, that person was seriously injured. If you bring him back, he will faint. I'm afraid he won't be able to do it anymore." Yi Wu frowned and quickly found Bailianian in a dilapidated room. The arrow on his leg had already been pulled out by himself, bleeding all over the ground, and he also fainted from the pain. To be a ruthless person. She reached out and carefully brushed away the messy hair on the other person's face, wiping away mud and sweat, unexpectedly revealing a very handsome face. In the previous life, Bailianian, who had been killed back, was also full of wounds. Her leg was limp, and she had several terrifying wounds on her face. Her whole body was covered in new and old wounds, causing Yi Wu to ultimately not know what Bailianian looked like. "I just feel like he's crazy like a monster. He used to be so beautiful." Unexpectedly, at the next moment, those tightly closed eyes suddenly opened, and the two of them suddenly met in all directions. At this moment, Bailianian's gaze was as sharp as a wounded beast, and he said, "You, how could you be here?" In her past life, Yi Wu was indeed not here, so she casually said, "I have something to ask you when I come." "What words?" "Today you were hiding in the grass. Did you see anything you shouldn't have seen before?" A cold smile flashed in Bailianian's eyes, and it was indeed for Shuehan. "I didn't see anything." Yi Wu nodded and said, "That's good. Today, it was indeed my princess who accidentally injured you. But don't worry, my princess has always had clear rewards and punishments, and she will find too many medical injuries for you. Listen, make sure to take care of yourself before returning to the capital, and then I will allow you to come and serve my princess." Serving. Bailianian's gaze instantly became complex and unpredictable. "Thank you very much, princess. I can't bear it. It's not up to you to decide whether to take it or not. It's up to the princess the final say. This is the first-class wound healing medicine. You can keep it for use first. Yi Wu rarely suppresses it with power." Before leaving, he added, "Take good care of yourself. It's a pity that such a beautiful person is disabled." Bailianian sneered, and the sarcasm in his heart seemed to intensify. However, he couldn't see through Yi Wu's purpose in this move anymore. Is it possible that he wanted to torture him in a different way? Seeing that Bailianian was not speaking, Yi Wu turned around satisfied and left the stable. But behind her, Bailianian's gaze always followed her back, wishing to slice open her flesh and blood and see clearly. Why is Yi Wu different from before? She likes Shuehan so much that she is obsessed with him. She never looks at others too much, how could she suddenly treat him differently? Over here. Stepping out of the stable, Yuan Yang asked in confusion, "If the princess saves him, she will save him." Why do you have to be transferred to serve him? This servant has also taken one step to heaven. Shooting him with an arrow, I feel guilty. Oh, oh. Yuan Yang is easy to fool, but Yi Wu's thoughts are very bold in her heart. Now, Bailianian, Tua is a wolf cub with unlimited abilities and prospects. Instead of letting go and becoming an unstable factor, it's better to turn conflicts into jade and silk, raise them by your side early, and use them for your own benefit. Although Bailianian's past life left a deep shadow on her, compared to betraying her so-called relatives, that shadow is nothing. To put it 10,000 steps further, even if such a person cannot be raised well, she still counts as having the kindness of support from him today, and will not harm her in the future. Of course, she wouldn't give him that chance either. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Yi Wu made up her mind and hurried straight to the Empress's residence. At the age of 15, her mother is still alive. But in her past life, her mother accompanied her father for more than 20 years, governing the harem and loving the people like a son. However, she was framed by Princess Zhaoran Yi Qiong and consort Han Guifei, and was deposed and sent to the Cold Palace. Coincidentally, news of her grandfather's death in battle returned to the capital, and she fell ill and eventually passed away. It's all her fault. She only knows how to be stubborn and never understands how to empathize with her mother. Now that she has started over, she will definitely not be stubborn anymore. Oh, Wu is here. You naughty monkey, why are you standing at the door and not coming in? The Empress looked at Yi Wu and scolded, but her eyes were full of indulgence. And this sound of Wu, even more familiar, made her heart tremble and tears welled up in her eyes. Mother, my daughter misses you so much. After seeing her mother in another life, she felt a sense of sadness arising from it. She had suffered so much in her previous life and only wanted to cry in the arms of her mother. The Empress panicked and asked, "What's wrong? Did that kid from the Shui family bully you?" No. The Empress didn't believe it, so she scanned Yuan Yang and said, "What do you say?" Yuan Yang couldn't hold back the sadness. Yi Wu was crying when she saw her. Back to Empress, Shui Gongzi is really going too far. Today, he was hugging his cousin in the forest, and we caught him. He not only didn't want to repent, but also scolded the princess. "Princess, I'm really not spitting or displeased. You can beat or punish me. What am I punishing you for?" Yi Wu shook her head. Originally, she didn't want to disturb her mother with this troublesome matter. Wu, is this all true? Mother will never let you suffer for nothing, she will definitely let the Shui family give you an explanation. The Empress immediately became angry. Yi Wu's nose is sore again, it feels so good to have someone to protect it. However, at this moment, a female official's report sounded outside the door. "Empress Dowager, it's not good. Shui Han, the young master of Shui, is making a fuss in the main hall about wanting to divorce the princess, saying that the princess is arrogant and domineering, beating her people at will. The Shui family also wants to marry a virtuous woman." Upon hearing this, Yi Wu's originally warm heart was instantly covered in a layer of frost. She had not yet come to settle accounts with him, so this scumbag was better off going ahead and cracking down on it first. In my past life, I don't know how many times this kind of drama has been performed. His maternal cousin has committed a crime and needs someone to handle it. His cousin wants to join the Ministry of War and wants her grandfather to open a back door. Even if his childhood sweetheart wanted the pearl treasure in her hand, he could have made such a fuss by directing and acting himself, and even tried 100 different spirits. Yi Wu really wanted to wear it back and slap herself a few times at that time. She was blind and had a blind eye for such a scumbag. At this time, the palace of Emperor Qingyuan. Shui Han knelt on the ground, his face filled with righteous indignation. "I am afraid, Your Majesty. Princess Rongan is arrogant and capricious, and she arbitrarily kills the servants around her. Even ordinary officials and young ladies have been beaten by her. I cannot accept it. I beg your majesty to make the decision, and I will withdraw my marriage. Bold. I have made up my mind, please accept it, your majesty. Every word and sentence fell in Yi Wu's ear, and a hat was tied on her head. Such remarks spread, and her reputation was damaged, affecting her mother. Not to mention it, others would feel that she was not worthy of Shui Han. What a Shui Han! Yi Wu lifted her legs and walked in, her gaze burning on that face, filled with raging hatred in her heart. She will definitely make him repay her past life experiences together. Yi Wu blessed the emperor's body and said, Father, since Prince Shui looks down on our royal family so much, it's better to terminate his engagement and consider the Shui family fulfilled. However, one thing needs to be clear. Today, it's not him, Shui Han, who withdrew his marriage, but this princess doesn't want him anymore. Yi Wu stood aloof and added word by word. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. What? Shui Han's gaze trembled, as if he couldn't believe it. Would Yi Wu say such things to him? Yi Wu. Don't regret it, he said coldly, even though he must have indulged in the pursuit of capture, regret. Regret doesn't look up to you. Yi Wu chuckled and said, Shui Gongzi, can you tell me which aspect of yourself is worthy of my princess's education? What is your ranking in the White Deer Academy? Are you too embarrassed to say it? Not to mention your martial arts skills, a soft-footed shrimp. You said that if you don't become a martial arts expert and have an average family background, why should I regret it? Truth hurts people. Shui Han's sarcastic face turned green and white, but he couldn't refute it, only feeling angry in his heart. Did Yi Wu forget the way she wagged her tail and begged for mercy? She used to be so obsessed with him. He doesn't believe that Yi Wu really dares to divorce. Shui Han said coldly, okay, I'm not worthy of a princess. But remember, princess, even if you ask me to marry you the next day, I won't look at you. Okay. Yi Wu smiled even more broadly and said, if you and I resume our engagement the next day, we will have to deal a heavy blow. Shui Han. Yi Wu lifted her skirt and walked straight to the desk of Emperor Qingyuan, saying, Father, I have already spoken so clearly with Prince Shui. Please make the decision for your children and issue an order. My royal children will never be those shameless people who are attached to you. Emperor Qingyuan also understood that these two people were really going to divorce. At first, the empress beside her was worried that Yi Wu would be indecisive. Unexpectedly, upon seeing this, she felt immensely relieved and said, yes, both of them have made a scene like this. If we don't withdraw from our marriage, outsiders will still think that I can't marry the princess. Emperor Qingyuan seemed to have no reason to stop, so he could only sigh and nod, then let's draw up an edict. Thank you, father. Grinding, writing, and stamping. Almost all in one go. When Shui Han received the imperial edict, he felt dizzy and couldn't believe that the effort of just having a cup of tea had actually led to his divorce. However, he only realized that he didn't intend to do so. At first, he just wanted to use this to manipulate Yi Wu, make her obedient and accommodate his cousin, but now. If he withdraws, he will not only become the laughing-stock of the White Deer Academy, but also the laughing-stock of the capital. Crazy, it must be crazy. Ah Wu. Shui Han wanted to step forward, but Yi Wu quickly distanced herself from her and said, Master Shui, since we have also retired from our marriage, should we also count the things that this princess sent to Shui's mansion before and send them back to the palace tomorrow? Shui Han was taken aback and said, what do you mean by this? You have already withdrawn from marriage, and you still want to pick up the woman's belongings and return them. You are not afraid of spreading the reputation of your Shui family's soft food, which would insult your grandfather's literary demeanor. The weakness of the Shui family is that they are shameless. Your Highness Royal Highness Princess, don't worry. The Shui family is very proud and will never take up more than 1 cent of others. That's great. The Empress said indifferently, you said this in front of your Majesty. At the latest, tomorrow, we will send it all to the central palace. Our palace will send a dedicated female official to supervise it, and we must not let the pride of the Shui family be put to shame. Shui Han gritted his teeth and said, thank you very much, Empress Dowager. The goal was achieved, and Yi Wu's mood significantly improved. It was all dowry, antique calligraphy and painting, gold and silver money that her mother had reserved for her. She was tricked into buying some in advance by the Shui family, and now she can't afford to give it a cheaper price. It's night. It rained lightly, and Yi Wu slept very restlessly. She had a dream that she was on a strange snow cliff and was about to fall. Suddenly, one hand grabbed her and a boy saved her. They held hands and agreed, are you a princess? When I grow up, will I come find you? Okay, you must come, I'll wait for you. Afterwards, she dreamed of Bailianian again. She hunted in red and rode on a galloping horse. When she saw him approaching, she gave him a fierce whip and said, where did this lowly slave come from? I am Bailianian. I have a low status, but there is an indescribable arrogance between my eyebrows. Even the lowly slave has a name, pull it down and reward him with dozens of whips to let him know his identity. He followed her all the way and was shot dead in one leg by her arrow in the hunting ground. She was furious without warning and said, you lowly slave, you scared away my princess's prey. Damn it. What about that crippled slave? What did you see that day? Don't say it. Hang him up and beat him until he's willing to speak. Are you dead? If you're dead, throw it out. The screen froze in his gaze at her, filled with hatred. Yi Wu woke up in an instant. The voice of Yuan Niang rang out the door, Princess, the stable's guards have come to report that the servant is seriously injured and may not be able to recover. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Worry-Free Wolf Cubs. Yi Wu rubbed her painful head, got up, put on a piece of clothing, and went to the stable. As soon as I entered the door, I felt the atmosphere inside was very tense. Bailianian sat alone, surrounded by blood, but he remained indifferent. Princess, this person is very crazy. During nightmares, he went crazy and almost choked the imperial physician to death. He didn't let anyone touch him, and no one wanted to change his dressing. Yi Wu had known in her past life that Bailianian had the problem of nightmares and murder, but she didn't expect this problem to occur so early. She took the medicine and said, the princess will come herself. Bailianian sneered and looked up, I am a lowly servant. Aren't you afraid to stain the princess's hand? Not afraid. As the words fell, Yi Wu had already opened his wound and cleaned it again. He was suddenly convulsing from the pain, but it was hard for him to shout out. Yi Wu knows him too well, this person is even more ruthless towards himself and his enemies. Now they are all in a difficult situation, and their gaze at people is also very sharp. The servants next to him seemed afraid to look at each other. She quickened her pace, sprinkled powder, bandaged him, and finally tied a perfect bow with a bandage before nodding in satisfaction. I have already told Guanyin that I will take full responsibility for your injury. If you don't want this leg yourself, I will have to take it for you. Don't act recklessly in the future. Do you think this way, will I be grateful? Bailianian still showed no mercy, because he knew that according to the personality of the little princess in her past life, she would never do such a servile thing, and there must be some undisclosed reason. What exactly is the reason? Why is everything different from the past life? The noble princess not only lowered her head to show kindness to a lowly servant, but also experienced another unexpected event in the afternoon. I heard that the princess has divorced Shui Han, he suddenly asked. Yes, are you also happy for this princess? Yi Wu smiled, without a hint of sadness, but instead was overjoyed and overjoyed. Bailianian remained calm on the surface, but the shock in his heart was indescribable. Did he become different because of his rebirth? Yi Wu slowly approached his face and smiled, saying, "Your face is very in line with my princess's wishes. While I am still patient with you, hurry up and get better. Otherwise, one day when I see a handsome gentleman who is even more beautiful than you, I will forget about you." So it's because of this face. So in his past life, he led troops to kill into the imperial city, and only with injuries did he imprison her by his side. In this life, was it solved just because of one face? It's really absurd and ridiculous. It has to be said that at this moment, Bailianian's eyes were even more terrifying, as if she could eat Yi Wu the next moment. Although Yi Wu's heart was beating faster, she couldn't resist and always kept staring at him. Until Bailianian spoke again. "It turns out that the princess is very short of men now. She is so kind to me, is it because of my body?" You can understand it that way. Yi Wu was too lazy to explain, but it was important to keep his life for now. "So, little Ma Nu, take good care of yourself and don't let this princess down. She is not only looking for his body, but also for his great achievements in the future, so the days ahead are long." Well, the nickname, Little Manu, is also good. Yi Wu slowly let go of her beating heart and instructed people to take good care of him. Then she gathered her clothes and got up to leave. Bailianian's gaze fell on her cheerful figure, gradually deepening. "Interesting. But Yi Wu, you took the initiative to recruit me." 2 days later. After the autumn hunting ended, the emperor and empress returned to the capital. After 2 days of ups and downs, the royal frame finally arrived at the capital. Along the way, Yi Wu was afraid that Bailianian's wound might be worse, so she specially made 2 beds for him. Even the servant who served him flattered and said, "The princess is really devoted to the young master of Bailey. If the young master becomes successful in the future, don't forget the little one. Get lost." Bailianian said coldly. The frightened servant shuddered. This servant is good everywhere, just the way he looks at people. It's really scary, like he's going to eat people. I don't know what the princess likes about him. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. At the entrance of the palace. As soon as Yi Wu and the empress got off the carriage, they saw Han Guifei and Princess Zhaoran Yi Qiong welcoming them, and now they saw the mother and daughter again. Yi Wu only felt the various moments of her past life surging into her heart, and every word Yi Qiong had said to her was like a knife chopping an axe. She said, "On the day of your marriage to Shui Han, I sent someone to defile you." She said, "Do you know why I hate you? Even though I am better than you, why are you born noble, so I have to let you go?" She said, "Your maternal grandfather died in battle, which was also the result of my people's actions. Your mother died under the poison that my mother's consort had personally prepared." Word by word, reminding her of how foolish and sad she used to be. She lowered her eyes, completely concealing the hatred in her eyes. When she looked up again, she curved her lips and said, "Sister Huang, it's been a long time since we last met. Don't be safe." Yi Qiong took her arm and looked worried. "Ah Wu, are you okay? I heard you divorced Shui Han, but Shui Han is really going too far. Huang Jie will definitely vent her anger on you. Then I have to thank Sister Huang." Unexpectedly, Yi Qiong changed her tone and said, "Don't worry, Ah Wu. Not only will she vent her anger for you, but she will also make Shui Han willingly come to marry you." Yi Wu's smile turned a bit cold as she casually withdrew her arm and said, "Shui Han, it's impossible for me to get married. It's time I remembered that Prince Su of Zhenbei was married to the royal family, and the crown prince has reached the age of marriage. It's time for me to take on my own responsibilities. Royal family, Prince of Zhenbei, legitimate princess. These 3 are enough to make people imagine." In the past, Yi Wu was completely focused on Shui Han and didn't pay attention to them. Now, it's different. The marriage alliance between the Prince of Zhenbei and the royal family must be closely related to the legitimate princess, and everyone is not foolish. However, the Prince of Zhenbei was the person that Yi Qiong had longed for in her past life, and in this life, she was determined to ruin her cherished engagement. Sure enough, upon hearing these words, Yi Qiong's face instantly changed. The Empress also agreed. The Prince of Zhenbei's family has devoted themselves wholeheartedly to our holy court, which is indeed much better than the Shui family. My son finally understands. These words were like adding fuel to the fire. Yi Qiong's fists hidden in her sleeves were almost shattered, and when she returned to her bedroom, she angrily smashed everything. Mother, why did Yi Wu, a fool, fall in love with the Prince of Zhenbei? He is the person my daughter likes. Han Guifei's face turned cold and she said, we must not let the central palace receive the support of the Prince of Zhenbei again. Otherwise, it may be difficult for us to have a place to stay in this palace in the future. No, we absolutely cannot let the marriage of Prince Zhenbei fall on Yi Wu's head. The Prince of Zhenbei can only be her husband. Having considered this point, Yi Qiong picked up her pen and wrote a letter, someone, deliver it to Shui Mansion. Yi Wu returned to Roman Hall and rummaged through boxes and cabinets to find something. In her past life, Yi Qiong once asked her for a scripture, and when it comes to that scripture, the one she obtained is very legendary. It is said that it was my grandfather who was on an expedition and was once trapped in a mysterious valley. Unexpectedly, he found out that my grandfather was a rough man and didn't pay attention to a scripture. After returning to the capital, he casually gave it to Yi Wu. Later, she was asked to leave by Yi Qiong. Not long after, Yi Qiong learned many powerful medical skills and prescriptions. At that time, she didn't know the reason, until the country was broken. Yi Qiongzai proudly told her that her medical skills all come from the treasure scroll hidden in that scripture. Thinking about it to this point, Yi Wu had already found the scripture and quickly cut open the pages. There were indeed layers hidden inside, and when she pulled them out, they were all thin sheets of paper with ancient prescriptions written on them. How precious it is! In her past life, she even handed over such a treasure to Yi Qiong, and Yi Wu couldn't help but want to beat herself up. She was both surprised and delighted, carefully binding it up, and indeed produced a peerless medical book. After finishing it all, it was already dark. Princess, it's time for dinner. Okay, here we go. Yi Wu thought to herself after putting things away properly. By the way, what's wrong with the Manu? He can use dinner. Yuan Yang felt helpless and didn't even eat, but instead cared about a servant. She said, Princess, don't worry. The servant is fine, so we'll arrange for him to stay in the upper room of Roman Hall. He eats the best food and doesn't dare to deliver anything bad. That's good. Let him recover well these days, there's no need to go out and walk around. It's not too late to come and see him when he's fully recovered. Ye's gentle voice was full of concern. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 by Bailianian had actually been outside all along. At this moment, upon hearing Yi Wu's words, she retreated and quietly hid herself in the darkness. When he returned to the room, he suddenly sensed a strange aura approaching him. Jun's eyes suddenly turned cold, and his voice made him shudder. Get out, he said, please spare your life, young master. I will go downstairs and pay my respects. I can't believe that over the years, young master has not only not slackened his martial arts skills, but has also become so outstanding. If you have something to say, just say it, and if you have fart, just let it go. Bailianian recognized this person. In his past life, he had saved himself, but also controlled him. Now that he has met in another life, seeing him crawling on the ground like a dog, Bailianian felt very happy in his heart. The king summoned the young master back. It was him who said my bloodline was unclear back then, and now it's also him who wants me to go back. Thinking of his cold and aloof father, Bailianian sneered in waves. It has to be said that as a person of 2 generations, his aura and dignity have long been integrated into his bones and blood. In the building, I could only feel cold sweat and sweat. I never expected that the young master, who had been lost for many years, would become so terrifying. However, it's okay. Your Majesty, he was supposed to go back and hone his character for the young masters. Young master, everything back then was a misunderstanding. Now that you have grown up, you are at least 80.9% similar to the king. Who dares to question your bloodline? Once you return, you can transform yourself and become the esteemed young master of the southern Xinjiang king. You don't have to be subservient to others anymore. The high and mighty lord may even admire you. Shut up. Bailianian's gaze fell sharply. The building trembled slightly, unsure of what he had said wrong. I will go back to southern Xinjiang, but not now. I will inform you when I finish what I have at hand. However, it's best not to appear in front of me these days, otherwise. I understand. The next day, early in the morning, Yuan Yang hurriedly came to report, Princess, Prince Shui ordered someone to enter the palace to deliver a message. What did he say? Shui Gongzi said that among the items gifted by the princess, there is also a private item that is not on the list. Shui Gongzi said he wants to invite the princess to talk and personally return it to you. Indeed, there is a precious private item, a string of East China Sea pearls, Yi Wu said with a smile, Princess, are you going? Go, why not go? Not only did she have to go, but she also had to sing a good play. Yi Wu didn't believe in Shui Han's character at all, so she took the initiative to return things, fearing that there might be demons if she were abnormal. Yuan Yang, on the other hand, looked worried. Shui Han was not a good person, so don't deceive the princess. At this moment, she suddenly saw a figure walking towards this direction. Upon closer inspection, it turned out to be Bailianian, dressed in protective clothing. Standing tall and upright at the moment, she felt a bit like a sesame tree. Compared to Shui Han, this face is truly pleasing to the eye. Yi Wu placed her hand on her chin and looked at him, as if she was very satisfied with his current appearance. Bailey guard, the princess is going out of the palace to make an appointment with Prince Shui, so you can come with her, Yuan Yang said quickly. Compared to the cunning Shui Han, Bailianian seemed harmless to Yuan Yang. Shui Han. It's Shui Han again. Upon hearing this, Bailianian's originally faint expression instantly gathered into a thick and gloomy aura. Yi Wu didn't think much, her gaze fell on his handsome and delicate face, and she smiled, exactly, I also had this intention. It's just your injury, is it all over? I am not in any trouble, and I am willing to accompany the princess out of the palace to repay her, and save her. Thank you. The last 4 words were bitten heavily by Bailianian, causing Yi Wu's heart to tremble. Is this to seek revenge or gratitude? The wolf cub is indeed a wolf cub. For the future, when he becomes successful, don't kill yourself. Yi Wu also has to endure, even try to please and establish good relationships, waiting for an opportunity to recover him. So in this strange atmosphere, both sides walked out of the palace together. However, Yi Wu did not go to Shui Han's appointment, but directly knocked Shui Han unconscious with a stick and dragged him onto the carriage. When Shui Han woke up, he found himself being pinched by a guard's neck, while Yi Wu stood by, chewing on melon seeds. Ah Wu, what are you doing? Ah Wu was also called Bai Yu. Applause. When Bailianian was ordered to knock Shui Han unconscious, his gaze was confused. Didn't he go to the appointment? Yi Wu is indeed quite ruthless toward Shui Han now. Upon hearing this, she didn't hesitate to slap Shui Han hard. Shui Han almost vomited blood during the fight. Yi Wu was always nibbling on melon seeds, showing no signs of past tenderness. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Shui Han, you invited Princess Ben out to return Princess Ben's belongings, right? Yes. Shui Han nodded blankly. What about that thing? Shui Han was dumbfounded. Previously, he received a secret letter from Yi Qiong, instructing him that today was the only opportunity to win back Yi Wu's engagement. He was even prepared to sacrifice his appearance. The so-called return of things is simply a cover. Can't you take it out, right? Because you've already given it to someone, it's for Han Jinjin, the legitimate daughter of the new noble Ho mansion, as a token of love, right? Yi Wu sneered. This matter was known to her in her past life. Do you still remember that day when Han Jinjin married into the Shui mansion as his wife? She brought her string of East China Sea pearls and made a name for herself. Afterwards, he even ridiculed her and boasted about how smart he was, and he had already fallen in love with Shui Han. Afterwards, she was forced to kneel in the snow for 2 hours. In her previous life, her knee, which had been slightly painful until death, was bestowed upon her by Han Jinjin. How could she let go of this dog man and woman? And this new noble mansion is not elsewhere, it is the home of consort Han's mother. One person achieves enlightenment, and the whole family ascends to heaven. The Han family was just a disciple of the 3 teachings and 9 streams. They sold their daughters as thin horses and forced them to become new nobles. They were also very famous in the capital. At this time, Han Jinjin even had a marriage agreement with the Duke of Anghua. In her past life, she even married into the government office, but when the government office was in decline, she suddenly parted ways and turned around and fell into trouble. Even the death of my grandfather in battle is closely related to the Han family. How do you know? Shui Han was dumbfounded and instinctively whispered, quickly covering his mouth in shock. Naturally, it was Huang Jie who told me, Yi Wu said nonchalantly. Impossible. Shui Han didn't believe it 100 times. Yi Qiong asked him to come out and seduce Yi Wu, but how could he reveal his secret? Han Jinjin is Yi Qiong's cousin. But he didn't believe that Yi Wu's brain could know all of this. Once the seed of doubt is planted, it becomes uncontrollable. Is it because Yi Qiong wants to harm him? Believe it or not, it's up to you. Since you also admit that you gave the item to Han Jinjin, I will naturally come to ask for it, Yuan Yang, Yi Wu ordered. Yuan Yang immediately obeyed. Only then did they realize that they were standing in front of the gate of the new noble mansion. Yuan Yang, knock the gong in her hand and shout loudly. Princess Rongan requested to meet with Han Jinjin, the legitimate daughter of the new noble Ho mansion. Due to her former fiancé A.E. Shui Han's admiration for Han Jinjin, she secretly gave her a gift, a string of East China Sea pearls, to Han Jinjin. Now that the princess and Shui Han have broken their engagement, the items should be returned to their original owners. Please hand over the items to Miss Han Jinjin, so as not to harm their harmony. Yuan Yang already has some internal skills, and this statement is full of confidence. In front of the gate of the new noble mansion, a lot of people gathered in an instant. As the saying goes, if you don't look at the excitement, you are just a bastard. Suddenly, it exploded and discussions began. How could the young master of the Shui family give the imperial gift to the legitimate daughter of the new noble? The new nobleman's legitimate daughter still took it. I don't know if it's foolish or shameless. I said, why did the princess and Shui Han suddenly withdraw from their marriage before? It turns out that the crux lies here. Dogs and men are shameless. Shui Han was dumbfounded. Yi Wu not only stepped on his face, but also on the faces of Xian Gui Ho Fu and Han Jinjin. What are you doing? At this moment, the new noble Ho mansion finally opened its doors. Seeing that it was Yi Wu, she dared not cause trouble, but Yuan Yang quickly repeated it. A bunch of nonsense. Our family's precious treasures are betrothed to the Duke's mansion. As an innocent girl, how could she casually accept valuable gifts from others, let alone gifts from the emperor? The new nobleman exclaimed in great anger. He is the elder brother of consort Han, and he relied entirely on her to obtain the marquis position. He has no official position, no education, and no manners. If Han Jinjin can marry the duke's mansion, it is definitely a high achievement. Upon hearing this, Yi Wu nodded and said, what the newly appointed marquis said is absolutely true. It seems that Shui Han is talking nonsense and has been biting into his mansion. Alright, I will send him to the Ministry of Justice to serve him. I will see if he says it or not. If the Ministry of Justice cannot find out, he will be sent to the Ministry of War. My maternal grandfather has always been observant. Upon hearing this, the people of Xingui Ho Mansion found nothing wrong with it. The princess said, this is between you and Prince Shui. Yi Wu, are you crazy? Shui Han, however, was impatient. He knew that Yi Wu could do such a thing today. This matter, whether involving the Ministry of Justice or the General's office, is bound to be completely uncontrollable. At this critical moment, the ignorant new nobleman was still speaking sarcastically, Shui Gongzi, you should take responsibility for losing the princess's belongings. Don't bite us recklessly. Xian Gueho is right. Shui Han is full of nonsense. He even said before that he had already made a lifelong secret agreement with Han Jinjin. How could that be possible? Xian Gueho was furious. My family's Jinjin is blind and cannot be attracted to such a petty person. Shui Han, don't think so. My family's Jinjin has a bright future. You. Shui Han's angry teeth creaked and closed, allowing him to swallow the dirty water alone. Han Jinjin, who was in the prime of his life, kicked him away with a single kick, thinking beautifully. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. When it comes to Lenovo today's events, it was all Yi Qiong's idea. Did they not plan it out? Since that's the case, let's forget about his face. Shui Han roared angrily, Xian Gueho, it's too cruel and vicious for you to put me to death like this. Others don't know about me and Han Jinjin, but your own father doesn't know. Where's Han Jinjin, that slut? At first, she said she saw my handsome appearance, admired me in her heart, leaned against me, and even had a few good times with me. She said she liked the pearl of the East China Sea, so I helped her get it. Now how could she pretend to be dead? A stone stirred up 3 waves, and the face of the new nobleman almost turned green with anger. Shui Han, what nonsense are you talking about? I'll kill you. Upon hearing this, Han Jinjin, who had been hiding behind the door, was immediately furious and rushed forward to attack Shui Han. However, before she could rush over, she was directly stopped by Yi Wu, and without hesitation, she reached out and slapped fiercely. Pop. This slap is your revenge for humiliating me in your past life. Do you dare to hit me? Han Jinjin, relying on the favor of Han Guifei, has always been arrogant and has no idea. If she rushes forward, she will fight back. Unexpectedly, while holding on to Shui Han's Bailianian with one hand, he could still separate a long leg and kicked Han Jinjin 1 meter away with 1 foot. Seeing Yi Wu, her heart was filled with a sense of relief. Excitedly looking at Bailianian, she said, I will definitely reward you heavily when I go back. That beaming expression dazed Bailianian's face, as she had never seen her so happy before. She knew she would kick her a little more. Jinjin. At this moment, a figure ran over. It was none other than Yi Qiong. She was originally waiting for news that Shui Han had seduced Yi Wu, but what she didn't want to wait for was news of a commotion in front of the new noble Ho mansion. Yi Qiong was completely caught off guard. After all, even she didn't know that the pearl of the East Sea was actually in Han Jinjin's hands. This cousin with shallow eyelids dares to accept this hot potato. Yi Qiong's anger returned and she hurriedly said, Ah Wu, stop making trouble. It's not good for your reputation. Come back to the palace with Empress Huang quickly. Yi Wu evaded without leaving a trace and angrily said, I haven't brought my things back yet. Why did I leave? Fame, these dog men and women have been bullying me too much. The villagers and uncles around just now all heard it clearly. Tell me Huang Jia, who exactly are Shui Han and Han Jinjin? The people around immediately fried the pot and chattered incessantly. Shui Han is shameless. When he was engaged to the princess, he rolled the sheets with Han Jinjin, the legitimate daughter of the new nobleman. It's really vulgar. I'm so embarrassed to hear it. The new noblewoman has a nepotism relationship. If it weren't for Han Guifei, the Han family would be in the lower 9th class. Yeah, Han Guifei used to be a thin horse, a lowly concubine who specialized in serving people. Bold, you troublemakers. Yi Qiongqi was trembling all over, but these ordinary people were also speaking rudely. Yi Wu smiled inwardly and advised, Huang Jia, don't be angry. Although they may sound unpleasant, they are also honest. It's not worth being angry about these unworthy people. Yi Qiong is really going to vomit blood this time. She came in a hurry and didn't bring any guards, otherwise she really wanted to kill these troublemakers. Han Jinjin, why don't you return the things to this princess quickly, otherwise the situation will escalate and be bad for anyone, Yi Wu sarcastically mocked Yi Qiong before scolding Han Jinjin. Jinjin, take out the things and return them to Ah Wu, Yi Qiong gritted her teeth. The new noble Ho mansion cannot afford to lose this person. She, Princess Zhaoren, couldn't afford to lose this person. Although Han Jinjin was domineering, she was only afraid of this princess cousin. If she couldn't bear it anymore, she could only order someone to quickly retrieve the things. In no time, a delicate box was presented, and inside was opened a string of East China Sea pearls. Yi Wu even picked it up specifically to check, and the bright pearls in the East China Sea were visible to the people around her, causing an uproar. Unexpectedly, the things are really in the noble lord's mansion. Shui Han and Han Jinjin are so shameless. If they are together, they even use the princess's things as a token of love. The establishment of the new noble marquis's mansion ultimately relied on nepotism. What kind of good family can be taught by the skinny horse consort? The Han family is just a lowly family with a poor family background. Everything is said on the streets and alleys. Since the things have been brought back, Princess Ben won't argue with you anymore. Shui Han, remember to give Miss Han a love token next time. You should give your own item as a genuine gift. Yi Wu took something and turned around before leaving. Shui Han was already limping on the ground with his meridians. He didn't understand how Yi Wu knew that something had been given to Han Jinjin. Is it really Yi Qiong? But she has no reason to make such a fuss, right? Have you been deceived? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Although the affairs in front of the Xingue Ho mansion have come to an end, the affairs in the palace are far from over. Confused. After learning about it, Consort Han was so angry that she almost smashed her cup and said, "This palace has already warned Han Jinjin. She is the legitimate daughter of the new noble marquis's mansion, and she is the face of the new noble marquis's mansion. How could she be so ignorant of the rules? In order to marry her to a wealthy family like the Duke's mansion, this palace has put in so much effort and is infuriating me." "Mother, please calm down," Yi Qiong hurriedly said. "Don't say you don't know, even I don't know, but isn't it urgent to solve the problem now? If the Han family loses face, then we lose face. The mother clan has no face, which directly affects her engagement with the Prince of Jinbei." Yi Qiong thought with deep hatred. Han Guifei suddenly stood up and said, "We can't do this. Rumors are ultimately rumors. As long as your majesty is willing to believe us, we still have a chance to turn things around and spread the word that Han Jinjin and Shui Han will enter the palace." On the side of the palace, Yi Wu has also said almost everything about today. The Empress exclaimed angrily, "What a great Shui Han, what a great Han Jinjin. She always acts like a human, doing all sorts of sneaky things behind her back. Surprisingly, she has a head and tail. Oh my god, she even promised to give it to the Duke of Angua. It's really unlucky. Yi Wu took a sip of tea and said, she can't keep the engagement of the Duke of Angua. Without the support of the big tree of Duke Angua's mansion, the new noble Ho mansion will never be able to climb higher in this lifetime. However, you have taken this matter a bit radical. Based on our understanding of Han Ningyu, I'm afraid she won't give up easily, the Empress said anxiously. Yi Wu has been a person of 2 generations, yet how could she not know the demeanor of Consort Han? Don't worry, she can't make waves. As soon as the words fell, the sound of Emperor Qingyuan approaching came from outside. Congratulations to your majesty. Yi Wu, you still have the face to talk here. Look at what you have done today, what a mess it has caused in the city. Before the person arrived, the angry rebuke arrived. Emperor Qingyuan and Yi Wusu were both father and daughter on the surface, and Yi Wusu understood this in her past life, so she was not sad. Just obediently standing there, looking up, I saw Han Guifei and Yi Qiong also coming. As soon as Han Guifei entered, she burst into tears and rushed to the Empress, saying, Empress, Empress, forgive me. Every mistake is my concubine's fault. My brother is crude, and I don't know where she offended the Empress and Princess. But Junjun, that girl, is innocent. She is a pure and innocent girl. As the reputation has been passed down in the city, how should she behave in the future? Ningyu, get up quickly. Emperor Qingyuan frowned and pulled up the crying consort Han. The Empress has long been so angry that she has lost her temper. The Han family did something shameful and didn't know how to repent, but even came to the central palace to make a fool of herself. That's right, Han Guifei is such a person. Even if there is no reason, it can lead to a 3-way argument. If there is reason, it may even be a heart that eats people. In her previous life, Yi Wu couldn't understand how she could stand undefeated even with such shallow and ignorant means. Later, she realized that as long as Han Guifei held on to the heart of Emperor Qingyuan, she can do anything she wants. On the contrary, the Empress and Emperor Qingyuan were originally a political alliance, seemingly married but separated by something, and this kind of drama is no longer the first time. How could Consort Han firmly assert that Han Jinjin is innocent before the matter is fully understood? Ah Wu's East China Sea pearl was taken out of the Xian Guiho mansion in front of everyone's eyes. Can this be a fraud? The queen sneered and asked. Of course, this can be fake. As long as someone has the intention to frame a crime, what can't be done? Shui Han was once the top of Princess Rongan's heart, so she gave my niece a courage. She also dared not. When she said, she still has a good future for a good family like Angua Mansion, how could she not imagine it? Han Guifei said sadly. And what she seems to be saying also makes sense. Bring Shui Han and the others up. Emperor Qingyuan naturally believed in Consort Han, because in his heart, Consort Han was the true love of his life. Not long after, Shui Han, Han Jinjin, and Xian Guiho were brought up. They had just knelt down when another announcement came from outside. The Empress Dowager arrived. Why did the Empress Dowager come? Emperor Qingyuan was surprised because the Empress Dowager usually ignored matters related to the harem. But the Empress Dowager was the only one in the entire harem who supported the Empress. Of course, it was Yi Wu who reported the news and invited her. After all, today's grand performance was inevitably dominated by the Empress Dowager. And when Han Guifei, who has always been fearless, heard the word Empress Dowager, she instinctively changed her face like a mouse seeing a cat. The show has just begun. End of this chapter.